spent a lot of time walking with the people who are to become his followers. He trained them, he lived life with them, and through all the experiences of Jesus' life, these men became guys who ended up changing the world. We as Christians need to follow the same model, a model that was started by Jesus that Paul ended up doing, where he was specifically investing in younger men who would also lead other men to do the same things. That's what he's talking about in 2 Timothy 2, entrusting these things to reliable men who will be able to teach others. One of the problems with college students is that a lot of times college students leave the faith while they're in school. They go off in their own way and we don't see them again until they're 30 years old when they have kids and realize that there's something beneficial to the faith. We have an opportunity as a church, as believers, to invest in the next generation, to invest in boys who will ultimately become men who don't just know a lot about the Bible, but know how to live it out in all areas of their lives. This house, though it looks a little bit dilapidated at the point, could be a place where we as a church decide to invest in a group of men who will live an intentional discipleship community for a period of time while they're at school in order to grow into men who are truly following after Jesus. So maybe what I'm talking about seems a little bit abstract. The idea of turning the mission house into a place where we could put young college students. You might be thinking, no way, that's not possible. It's a ridiculous idea. But when you think about the importance biblically of turning boys into mature men of God, to invest in the next generation, to produce, in essence, elder quality men, the idea of creating a context for these boys to become men makes a lot of sense. And so my vision is that we would turn this mission house into a house where college students will be living on mission, where they'd be living for a 9-month period in community with one another, learning all the things that mature Christians would need to know to live faithfully in all areas of their lives. And so maybe it's a little bit abstract still, maybe it's something that's a little bit out there that you're having a hard time imagining what that would look like. And I want to spend a few minutes just to show you, to kind of give you a glimpse of what this kind of idea would look like. So here we are in the living room, a different area of the house, but a very important area, because this is the place in the house where the young men would gather together. This is the place where Bible studies would be held. This is the place where they would have their discipleship time, the place where they would relax at night, where they would hang out and talk with one another, where conversations are going back and forth, where they host movie nights, movie discussions as they kind of figure out as a Christian, how should we respond thoughtfully to art and to media, to the things that our culture is trying to, in essence, press us into its mold. As these men discern that, along with the other college students from the ministry who would come in and join them. The men would be responsible once in a while, probably on a kind of once-a-month basis, to plan an event for other college students, to be inviting people into their home and to get a taste of what it is like to practice hospitality, as it says in Romans 12. And so this is a place where these men would live their lives with one another. And I think it's good to see that. As I look back on my own college experience being away, one of my favorite things was those late night conversations that I had with my roommate. I wonder what percentage of my theology was actually worked out as I laid on the top bunk and talked to my roommate underneath me. That's that type of thing, that type of community where those life conversations, those thoughts of God, those what are the meaning of life, who am I, those types of conversations that happen for college students often happen late in the wee hours of the night. Unfortunately, a lot of the college students who go to Brookdale, who are living at home, have their younger brothers and sisters in and out of their hair, and they don't have the opportunity to experience that independence in those times away where they're living with other guys their own age who are pursuing the same thing, who equally have a desire to serve the Lord and who are equally committed to a community of guys. Those conversations that happen in a bedroom like this one, on the bunk beds at 2 o'clock in the morning are things that we just can't have by hosting a program at the church or by having food at a diner. These are conversations that can only happen as guys live together in community. And these are the types of things that we would desire as guys would live together and be sharing rooms, sharing the same place of sleep with one another. And so those are some of the things that will happen even in a bedroom. So I hope you've caught a little bit of a glimpse of what the house looks like. Surprisingly, the church, the mission house really isn't as in bad shape as one might be led to think. It's actually in surprisingly good shape. And so a renovation project is actually well within reason. And I think even before we think about how much it'll cost and some of the potential problems that could happen, we really need to be committed to the vision. We need to be committed to the desire and the vision to equip the next generation. Imagine over the course of several years of guys living in this type of community for an entire year. You know, you think about what happens over the course of a retreat weekend and someone's lives has changed. I just had lunch with a student who went away on a spring break trip for a week, and his life was radically altered. You think about and imagine what could happen over a period of 9 months with guys who are committed to their spiritual growth for that type of an intensive time. The results are exponential. And I don't think that we can really question the importance of equipping the next generation. It's a really important thought for us to consider lest we become like King Hezekiah, who, when facing the condemnation for not trusting in the Lord, said, well, at least things will be okay during my lifetime. And I hope that as Christians we wouldn't think that same way. Well, at least things will be okay during my lifetime, but that we'll be thinking, what are the results over the next 10 or 15 years for our church? Are we failing to neglect in the next generation, or are we embracing that challenge regardless of what type of price that would look like, or what type of cost that would be for us as a church in terms of time and effort? So I encourage you to think about that, and we'll talk some more about the questions in a minute. So I hope you're starting to kind of catch the glimpse of the vision. I think it's a really exciting opportunity for us as a church to think about investing in the next generation, to have 4 or 5 guys at a time living in this house in an intensive discipleship community. There's a huge upside when you think about the long-term benefit for our church and for our community. But I also know that a lot of questions would go along with this, a lot of fears and hesitations, a lot of cautions, and rightfully so. And I want to try to answer some of those things now, and at the same time leave Dave to come follow me and have him answer some of the tougher ones. Naturally, I'm in China at this time. But there'll also be time later in later coming days to answer even some more detailed specifics, like what will the expectations for the guys living in the house be like. Those kinds of things we can answer later. Right now I think it's important to kind of get a general grasp of what this will look like. One of the big questions that comes up really is how will this be structured? Is this just your thing, Dan? What does that look like? And as a group of leadership here, one of the things that we are really committed to is that this house would have a leadership structure, that it would be overseen by a group of men from the church. There would be a board specifically designed to oversee the house's finances, the house's any types of structural needs or renovations that would need to be done, as well as be intentionally invested in the guys who would be living in the house, spending time eating with them, discipling them, those types of things. So there'd be a group of 4 or 5 men, and then in addition to myself and one of the elders who would be on that board to oversee the structure and all the details surrounding the house, which I think provides a good sense of accountability. Now, there would also be a need for some accountability within the house. I know, a lot of the first reaction oftentimes is you're going to do what with the house and then put who? And so, the idea of putting 5 guys in the house, I think, brings with the fear that it would become a fraternity or something of that nature. And I think the reality is that we would be putting quality men in there who would have to go through a somewhat rigorous application process, as well as be interviewed by the men on the board. But we would also have a guy who would be like a resident director who would be living in the house, typically a college graduate who would be in that house who would be selected and interviewed as well by the members on the board. That would be a guy who would also be living in among the guys, offering mature insight as well as accountability for their actions. That guy would be, is really a key role, and that is something that will, as we look to who God is raising up among us to fit that position, as well as potentially in the future doing a variety of different options to make sure we're continually year by year filling that position of a guy who would live in that house. Now, how would finances work? That's a really good question. One of the things that obviously is expected is the guys would have fees for living in the house. Something that would be similar to paying rent. We figured out over the course of a 10-year period, if guys are living in there 9 months at a time, that they would need to pay about $275 a month to live in that house, which is very reasonable for a guy to be able to live in that house, to afford it. Guys who'd be expected to be working at least 10 hours a week would easily be able to handle that. About $175 of that would go to continue to pay the costs for the house, and the other $100 would really be for budgeting, for making sure food and as well as the utilities are paid for. And so that's really one of the ways that the house would be handled financially. As far as expectations go, the guys would be committed to being involved in a ministry at the church. The guys would be committed to being discipled by a mature older man. The guys would be committed to and expected to maintain certain cleanliness and have expectations like that, such as room checks, as well as eating together and being involved in different reading as well. And we've a set curriculum that they would kind of go through in the course of a 9-month period that would be important for a guy of that age to learn and to go through things that would be holistic in learning. So we're not just producing men who know more about the Bible, but men who are able to live faithfully as Christians in all areas of their lives. So, I hope that answers some of your questions right now. There's going to be plenty of time to answer more of those questions in the future, and I know that Dave will be following me to talk about some more of the details and the thoughts regarding this mission house. Thanks for hearing me on this idea, and I hope that you'll thoughtfully and prayerfully consider this along with us. Thanks a lot.